Hey, what's up? It's your BibaGirrrl. Well, we've had an exciting week here. On Monday, we got ourselves a new dog, and she's actually laying down sleeping right now. But in the course of the time I'm making this video, you may hear her barking because we live in an apartment, and sometimes if she hears a key in a door of somebody down the hall, or a door slam, or even a barking dog outside, she may get a little crazy. So, um, but right now she's resting comfortably. So she's not a puppy. She's 4 years old. I would say she was a rescue, but she wasn't through an official rescue group. But we adopted her through just like a friend of a friend of a friend who basically couldn't take care of her anymore. And they had been watching her for 6 months from another set of people who couldn't take care of her anymore, who was the original owner. So the amazing thing was that we were just going to look at her. We were just going to visit with her and see if we liked her and if she was a good fit for us or whatever. And the people who were, I guess you could say they were fostering, but it wasn't like an official foster adoption type of scene. That she was like, well, we've got her papers, and she was spayed, she's up to date on shots, and she basically, behavior wise, we asked all the questions, and somehow we just felt that we could trust, what she, and plus we've been hearing about her, the dog, through these well, it's actually a coworker of my husband, and so he'd been hearing about the dog, and so and seen pictures of her, and so they were like, well, we've got her papers, and we've got her, these two winter coats, and so if you like her, you could take her today. And I was like, oh my gosh, we don't even, like I said, I don't have the dog bowls, I don't have this, I don't have that. And my husband's like, well, you can always just use some Tupperware things as dog bowls, and you can always, he said, and I had like a doctor's appointment that day, and he had taken off work, and he said, well, I can be in, she can I can be with her. We'll drop you off the doctor's appointment, and I can be with her. And I said, this is kind of like a big adjustment right away. And they're like, well, we can bring her back in a week. But it's almost like as soon as we saw her, we knew, she was a good fit for us. And they kept saying, oh, she's great in the car. She's good this and that, and she's great with this and great with that. But their situation was that they couldn't take care of her anymore. So we had been looking for a dog for a long, long time, and through various, whether it was through the pound and through various adoption groups, and for whatever reason, sometimes people don't email you back. Sometimes a lot of these adoption groups, sometimes just like, this is going to sound crazy, but just like online dating, sometimes they're using a fake picture. Sometimes it's a dog with a lot of health issues and a lot of problems that sometimes, a certain kind of, fine, if you've got the money to take on those health issues, or sometimes it's a picture of a sicker dog, and they're showing a picture of a healthy one. And so sometimes there's those kinds of issues, and then there's some rescue groups that'll say, we prefer that this dog will be adopted by someone who lives in a single family home as opposed to someone who's in an apartment, or it has to be the only dog, or this, and we don't have another dog, but I still watch a dog that had been with my ex-husband that's 11 years old now, and sometimes we might occasionally watch her, or we go over and spend time with that dog, or we go to meetups where there's other dogs that, so anyway, and because of that one reason, they'd say, well, this dog can't be around other dogs. Well, there's obviously got a behavioral issue, and so then we'd either say, okay, well, we don't want to take that on if that dog has that kind of a behavioral issue or whatever. So it had been a very long time where we were looking for just the right fit for us. Now, sometimes people will say, oh, well, I'll take on a dog that's got all these health problems, or I will take on a dog that's got a behavioral issue, or whatever. But sometimes it's like, well, I have learned in my life now that if I'm dealing with other things and got other things going on, I'm not going to add to, sometimes it might be great to give a dog a home, but I'm not going to add to um, my situation or an expense situation or things, and take on something that's so much bigger than we can handle. So I knew that we were looking for a certain type of situation where it was just going to be the right fit for us. So luckily, she was the right fit for us. So when they were saying, you can take her today, and so I turned to we've been looking for just the right fit, and here she was, the right fit. Literally, it was falling into our laps. And I said to my husband, I said, well, are you ready? And he's like, oh, I'm ready. And I said, okay, well, if you're ready, then I'm ready. So we basically got the dog on Monday. She's just wonderful. So if you've seen, posted pictures on my social media, Instagram is a cute picture of him with her. There's also, I'll be posting other ones, but I don't want to be where all of a sudden everything that I'm doing becomes all about my dog. Now, I have my personal Facebook page where I'm posting things, and I will post an occasional picture and stuff, but sometimes people kind of go crazy where, let's say, if they're always posting about politics, and all of a sudden then next thing you know, their social media becomes all about their cats or something. So I'm trying to stay on the range of topics that I'm really into, but I will, and if she starts moving around and starts getting I may put her on my lap and stuff, and you'll get to see her. So, but right now she's resting comfortably, and if she's cool, because when she gets a little wound up, barking wise, it can be a trip. And so anyway, but that's a really cool, positive thing that we've got going on in our lives. So the good thing is that we still saved a dog's life, and our lives are our lives are totally enriched by having this sweet little thing that's around us and keeping us company, and she's wonderful, and that's some really great news. So that's a big thing for us, and of course, and we have we're working together and as a team, and saying, okay, I took her out last time, you took her out this time, blah blah blah, and all that stuff, and it's just and it's a great opportunity. So once again, it's important to have a good person that you're partnered with when you're taking on a new challenge. If you're able to work together really well, or if you live alone, or if you're roommates or whatever, you're going to take something like that on. Make sure you've got people who are you see eye to eye on, and you already have a good idea of how they're going to handle stuff. Because sometimes you take on something like that, and it can create all kinds of craziness and drama you didn't know, because you didn't realize that they maybe weren't on board with it. So anyway, there's that. So that's some big news. A new family member, a furry one, and so I wanted to talk about another thing that was happening was really a cool thing. They had the regular New York Housewives, and then after the New York Housewives, they did a behind the Housewives, but I guess what they call it, behind the Housewives show, real story behind the Housewives, and they did it. Started off with the Countess Luanne, and so it was really fascinating seeing her life from. Her life story from beginning to now. She's my age. She was born in '65, and the same, and interesting the things that she did through the '80s, through the '90s, and through the 2000s and through now, and how her kind of life timeline played out. And I was sort of like saying, well, when she would be talking about which things she was doing at a certain age, I was kind of looking back and thinking about what I was doing at that same age, and certain choices I made, and different things. So it not only is it interesting to know the background behind some, when you see someone every week, and you see what kind of builds their character, or who they are, and what their point of references are. Now, I did not watch the New York Housewives from the very first season. I only started watching it from about like 2 or 3 seasons ago, when a guy that I went to high school with was on, and I happened to be following some boards about other housewives shows, and they were talking about New York, and they mentioned his name, and I was like, wait a second. Um, was like, wait a second, I know someone by that name. I went to high school with somebody by that name, and these people on the boards were like, they didn't realize how old I was, and they said, oh well, this guy's much older than you. You couldn't have gone to high school with him. And I said, well, I said, well, this is when I graduated high school, and they're like, oh my gosh, you are the same age. Wow, you look so young, and it always becomes about how young you look. But I said, well, I said, what's his story? How did he come in there? And they said, well, he's the ex-husband of one, he's dated another one, and now he's dating somebody else. I was like, well, I have to tune in for this. So that's what actually got me. I had seen bits and pieces, and I had of different seasons, and I had seen some of Bethany's reality show when she got married in her first apartment with the now ex-husband, and when she had, I guess it's Brienne, and I guess it's Brienne. So I had seen those shows, but I was not a regular for whatever reason. I felt that it was. There was an abrasiveness there that I'm around by being in the DC area, and there was I guess, and a lot of, and I know so many people from New York, and I have, I guess, it was sort of, in my mind, it was almost kind of too close. Even when they did the DC one wasn't my experience of DC, but really the New York, what I had experienced of what I had watched New York Housewives was very much like the people I know in the DC area. To me, New York Housewives may as well be what I know of as Potomac Housewives. Not to say no shade against the current group of what they're calling the Real Housewives of Potomac, but in my mind, the New York Housewives were pretty much like all the housewives, or a lot of my clientele of working in Bethesda, Potomac, and Rockville, and that whole scene of, a lot of them, and so it was just interesting that someone who had grown up in Bethesda, Potomac had actually been married to someone in the New York Housewives and was dating the Housewives. So here was a connection to that, and a lot of those, many of when I watch them, and I guess. Whereas it was different when I would watch other ones, say like Beverly Hills or Miami, or it just seemed like a different, not as East Coast of a group. So it didn't remind me. They were far enough away, just distant wise and lifestyle wise, that it was kind of, I didn't feel like I was like, it was a good escape. But when I felt when I watched New York, I always felt like, oh, I can hear these voices and see people like this every single day working in a hair salon. Why do I need to tune in? But once Harry was on, I was like, all of a sudden I was invested on another level, because I was like, well, I'm really interested. I want to see who he was married to, and I want to see who he was going out with. And then I actually got caught up in it. And as people say, you drink the Kool-Aid, and all of a sudden I was like, wow, I want to see what happens to this person and that person, and I'm interested that someone was with the Kennedy, and the Kennedy family, and the Morgans, and the whole bit. I'm like, these are people I've been reading about my whole life, and it's like you open up an issue of Vanity Fair or Vogue, and it's an extension of things that I've been reading about, and being caught up in, and knowing things. I was like, oh, so that's who so and so. Oh, that's, oh, okay, and so suddenly, and then and of course, then you have your favorites, and so of course, then I got caught up in it, and plus, I was going to New York at one point quite often, so it was fun. And to me, it's like Gossip Girl had just gone off the air, and I loved Gossip Girl because Gossip Girl was filmed like they show them having a walk in Central Park, or they'd show them do Upper East Side, Upper West Side, and doing, all that stuff. And so to me, it was like an extension of, it was like, wow, okay, this is replacing Gossip Girl. So I still get my New York City fix in without having to leave the house. And so it was just amazing. And part of the reason why I actually was drawn into it was because of Luanne, because I liked her classy demeanor, and I liked her, and I liked her kind of duality. How she was a little wild sometimes, and how there were times where she was handling herself classy, but then there were times where she, just really fun, she just had a nice energy about her. As and I'm known to be more kind of scattered, and a lot of times people have criticized me for when I was especially when I was younger, of being almost too scattered and too all over the place and too hyper and a little too crazy. And so I actually would see myself in like the Sonya, the Ramona, or it's like, I was watching them, and I was sort of like, well, that's sort of like how would get crazy watching my friends, or when if someone had videotaped me with my girlfriend. So suddenly I wasn't as like saying, oh god, I don't want to hear that. Suddenly I got caught up in it, and then when they brought Dorinda on, and Dorinda is sort of like exactly like somebody I would definitely hang out with, and she's kind of like the voice of reason, and I just really liked it. But so then I really got caught up in the storyline last year with Carol dating a younger guy, but it's Luann's chef, but the chef had dated her niece, and it was very easy to get caught up in that storyline, because I lived through something similar with another, in my own life, with a girlfriend criticizing who I was with, and the whole thing. So all of that. Now, I've been very lucky. I can't imagine what it would be like to go through a divorce, or even to just be married, to have your marriage be on TV, or have people say, oh, I don't like the way he's treating her, or I don't like the way she's treating her husband, or that kind of thing. And then or the way they might edit it as being a certain way when it's really not that way, or if you do go through a divorce, how people can take sides, or how people can be judgmental of, if you get separated, if you're physically not in the same house as someone, as your soon to be ex partner, whether it's your ex-husband, ex-wife, and then you or that ex start dating, but the divorce is still not officially legal. I have experienced what that's like when people are being judgmental about, oh, they shouldn't marry, or they shouldn't date, or they're still technically married, or oh, da 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 da, and this is cheating, and this is this is this is this. It's like, really, you're not in the house anymore, and what would have been considered a legal separation by one state, you have to be legally separated for, say, 3 months in one state versus 6 months or a year in another state to finally get the divorce finalized. And then with some of these divorces that take 4 and 5 years, they're not in the house anymore, and they're clearly not in love, and they're still trying to co-parent, whatever. Those divorces are dragged out forever. When is it okay to start dating by somebody else's criteria? So anyway, I can't imagine what that must be like, having those kinds of things played out on national or even international TV. I can't, as well as a 24/7 social media where everybody's got an opinion. I can't imagine. I joked 10 years ago when I was going through my divorce from my first husband, saying that even working in a salon with, say, 10 women, it was like 3 guys working there, then two guys working there consistently, as well as clients that were, sometimes gossiping or whatever, and then you had a manicurist and somebody else, and everybody's got an opinion of, I think she should have done this, I think she should have done that, or I think he did this, or I think he did that, or, everybody's got an opinion. I felt like even in that situation, that if that was anything like, and I know if that was amplified times 100,000 or 1,000,000, it's what it's like getting a divorce in the public eye. So with everybody in the opinion and the press, and if you do go on a date, and who you with, and what does he look like, and there's always going to be someone who's going to criticize. So anyway, it was really, really interesting seeing Luanne's story. Now, for me as a person, and I've spoken about this several times, as a person that came from what on the outside looked like a nice neighborhood, or as a person who, but then there's still things that happen that are out of your control. So, like, I could not have predicted, or my family could not have predicted, that I wasn't going to grow tall, or I wasn't going to be thin, or that I wasn't going to be gracious in every type of setting, or that the whole time I wouldn't say the whole time I was watching Luanne's show, but I could honestly say through part of watching Luanne's show, I was thinking of what if my grandmother was still alive, and she'd watch that show, and she would say, this is what she would have said, because she had that old school way of thinking, was that, gee, this would have been your life if you've been tall, and if you've been thin, and you'd been able to compete in beauty pageants, and if you've been smart enough to learn several languages, you'd have been able to marry a count too. Well, gee, I didn't get tall. I was never thin. I never even if you're tall and thin and beautiful, not everybody has the confidence to compete in pageants, or think that, even if you say, I don't know if I'm going to win, or I'll just go, do my friends doing it, or, my friends going on this modeling shoot, or I'll go along, and and who's to say? There's something, charisma. Sometimes people have inner charisma, and even if you learn multiple languages, and you are able to move in certain circles, some confidence and charisma, you can't, not everybody has that. You're either born with that, or you're not. And sometimes you can be the prettiest girl, and the tallest girl, and the thinnest girl, and come from money, and have everything. But if you don't have the ability to have people like you, and be able to move in all the right circles and have people say, wow, she's got a great personality, I want her to be on this TV show, or I want her to be hosting this show, or I want her to this. So in my mind, Luanne had so many of certain other ingredients, and confidence, and just in her chutzpah, but at the same time there's that gracious thing that says that everybody around her is feeling a certain level of comfortability when, if you're, let's say we're at a cocktail party and she comes into the room, um, which I think that is a big clash with the Bethany's, who are like more abrasive and just are out there, and that's part of the reason why, because Luanne is not that, she's not always going to put everything out there, and so when Bethany was yelling at her for the 3 episodes in a row that we saw, um, just own it, just own it, just own it. It's just not her personality. And it actually reminded me of a friend, and I'd love to. I'm gonna have to call her, because I have this one friend that when we worked together, she was very tall and she was thin and she was the kind of woman who could have modeled when younger, or even now. I mean, if they were older, if they started a modeling division for older women, or who's to say, we're now expanding modeling. I could be modeling now. Who cares? But anyway, she had this graciousness about her that, when she went into, people had no idea that, when she walked into a room, that she did not fit the stereotype of someone like me. You look at me right now. I've got the big hoop earrings. I've got the loud print. I've got fun, crazy makeup on. This lady did not fit that stereotype of hairstylist, and she'd always come off as, discussing what books she read, and always come off of, and oh, hey, and just her tone of voice, even her demeanor. She was the kind of person that would just make everybody be at ease, and she never stumbled on her words, and never spoke like where even when I'm doing these videos and I'm stumbling. So it was fun to hang out with someone like that, and I would always joke and say that, when I was with her, it was sort of like when you'd see Carol Burnett with Julie Andrews. She was a Julie Andrews, and I was a Carol Burnett. Like, she was this classy, beautiful, gracious, ladylike one, and I was the goofy one. But when we got together, we were still like having fun together. I kind of broke down her kind of little ladylikeness, and so it was fun to cut each other up like that and make joke around. And I hadn't thought of that friend in a really long time, so it made me think of her, and I thought, I haven't talked to that friend in at least, I don't know, it's been a long time. We started working in other places, and for all I know, she could have moved out of the area. I don't know. I've tried to find her on Facebook, but I didn't realize that Luanne reminded me of her, and I said, well, there's certain times when you watch these TV shows that there's certain people that, when you watch them, there's a reason why they're popular, and there's a reason why she was successful for all those years. You can, and so it's more than just being fitting this certain mold of what is success, of saying, oh, are you tall enough, or you can win a pageant. Some people can win pageants, but they can't go from translate that to being a likable host on a TV show, or being consistent on another show, or being able to move in certain parties where attract certain interesting people, and hang out with people who are counts and heads of state, and interesting things, and so it's not just, it's a class element, and I don't mean what class you come from, but it's how you carry yourself. So there's so much of a thing about people wanting to be, and I've said this before, like, oh, ride or die, or wanting to act like really street, and I myself have, I felt there for a long time. I felt that there was a lot of hypocrisy in hanging out with the kind of upper class, or kind of super wealthy, because I saw so much hypocrisy in it, so that I was very rebellious from that, and that's why I was attracted to the punk scene and the goth scene. But then there came a time where, as time went on, when you have to be able to be working in the world of trying to be successful, you have to say, well, I can only I can only be working in do I only want to work in the fringe scene, or do I want to be more appealing to a wider mass of people? And so the phrase of "you get more flies with honey" comes to mind, where if you're always angry and you're always upset and you're always like, yeah, I hate those rich 1%ers, or I hate those rich mofos, or I hate, or I can't stand this, you're so angry about it. But then you realize that to make change, you can still be angry. And believe me, there are a lot of us that are like really angry and upset about a lot of things right now. But to make the changes, you got to be heard. Um, you've got to really work within the regular confines, and to work within the regular confines, you can't be so out there that you're not willing to at least be able to get in the door and to be heard. So in all my years of being an activist and those kinds of things, it's like and but you're helping open the door for those who are that they're wild and crazy, and so that the people who are wild and crazy from 30 years ago can get things done now and feel free to be who they are. So there was a lot of that in me that I was doing back then, but at the same token, I didn't travel. I was afraid to travel. I would hear, it's funny, Luanne was talking about how, in Italy, she she was saying how they got crabs and all this stuff from hotels, and I said I remember thinking that in hearing about that in back then, because not every place has the same standards. And then I had forgotten that there was a time, like when in the 80s, when she was traveling around Europe, I had moved out on my own, but I still, I didn't even have the guts to move out of a different city. There was a time where I was like, okay, I'm out on my own and I have a roommate and I'm working and I'm going out and I'm partying or whatever. But if I needed my dad, I still if it was like 3 o'clock in the morning, I still liked being able to call up my dad and go, Daddy, can you pick me up? The metro's closed, my roommate won't pick me up, and da 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 da. And no questions asked, my dad would pick me up, and I knew that I could spend the night at my house, my old house, and wake up the next morning and my dad's making me breakfast, going, so are you okay? And we'd be able to talk it through. So not everybody has what I had in that regard, or and some people have the nerve to be able to say, okay, I'm going to Europe, and but the other hand is for me, I was always very lucky, and I had that sense of security, and I didn't want to leave that sense of security behind, because what I had experienced a lot of harsh things even before I moved out on my own, and when I was out on my own. So I sort of liked knowing that I had that sense of security there. And so it was kind of very interesting, and it was also interesting to hear that she had been in a car accident and she saved her kids and lives, and but then she was in the marriage that she was in, that there were still some problems, and being lonely, living somewhere else, and you can have everything in the world, but if the relationship you're in isn't working anymore, and it's you still need to be happy, and so you still make certain decisions based on the search for happiness, and we're all searching for happiness. So now and then also the embarrassment of wanting to keep things together when it's not working, because you don't want other people to know until you're ready. And so all of that was very interesting to me, because I had those similar kinds of experiences too. And then having times where you're single and free, and then finding new love is very exciting. And I've been lucky in the last 9 years that I did find new love, and then I did get married again, and I am with somebody really great. But I hope they do other shows that show the other housewives story. I'm really interested to see. I wonder if they're doing one housewife from each city to do one of those shows on, or are they going to do a bunch of ones of like uh, before they were housewives, about each housewife of each group, or how they're gonna play it out. I don't know how Bravo's gonna do it, but I am interested. Like, I would like to know, like, about some of the childhoods of some of these other childhoods and early teens and early 20s, or what some of those women did beforehand. Very curious to know the backgrounds, because once you know that story, then it makes it easier to understand, like, when there's dramatic things happening, or why they're making their choices about to talk about something versus not to talk about something, or say to own it or to not, versus to not own it. So it's we all watch TV, and we all make our judgments, but we don't know how we'd react if we were totally in those people's shoes. So anyway, that. And I've had a lot of people ask me about why I've been writing about why I post so much fashion, and I post so much celebrity when as a plus size person, because I didn't when I started out, I didn't want this only to be so much about being plus size. I was just saying, here's some cool stories, here's some cool ideas, here's some cool designers, here's some stuff that I like. I like these models. These are my favorite models, or I like these. Here's these makeup tips, and I'm sort of like, I've always tried to see, is a range. It's for everybody. Thin girls, heavy girls, tall girls, short girls, men, women, gender. I mean, have experienced a range of I've known trans people for over 33 years in my life, and I have some of my most good friends are people who don't wear makeup, and some who do, and men who wear makeup, and women who don't, and men who get rid of their facial hair, and women who leave it. And so I've had people in my life who run the range, and so I've always been like, hey, these are some cool ideas, and these are some interesting things, like, just and it's fun when other things come into play. And the same thing because for me, it's always been about the escape, and the creativity. Like, if you're going through some dark times, and then you open up a magazine, and suddenly here's a fashion spread that's all about, say, Alice in Wonderland. Or there's that right now, well, since there's that Alice Through the Looking Glass, and there's a whole makeup kit that's about Alice Through the Looking Glass, and you start playing with those colors, and whatever lipstick that comes with that. To me, like, wow, so you can maybe spend time with that and play around with that, and suddenly it's been you kind of like opened up your mind to something, and so those fun ideas, kind of took you out of whatever kind of garbage you were going through. So I've always been about how the transformation of it, and as well as the freedom that comes along. Like here's, a while back, and I haven't posted about it. There was a group of, at first it was Ellen, who made a line of suits, since Ellen always is usually dressed in what I would call traditional male suits. She's designed her own line. I'm talking about Ellen DeGeneres. Her own line of men's, looks like men's suits, but they're genderless. So if you're female or male, whatever, even even if you don't want to have a gender specific, this is gender unsuspicious. I'm trying to say that with a Invisalign, but they're non-specific gender suits. Whoever can buy them and wants to wear them. And so now there's a couple other fashion lines who are creating that. Just like if somebody's, older, if you have a fashion line that has a whole range of sizes, then you're able to say a person with a size 15 shoe, whatever gender or sexuality situation they've got going on, they're able to buy a size 15 shoe, whether that's a high-heeled pump, or whether it's some flats, or whether it's a sneaker. So I've always, or vice versa, if you're a little person and you need clothes to fit you, that there's fashions for, smaller people. And so I've always believed in that, like, range of being open, and that there's, like, creativity in that. So that's why I do often post about how it's why I get so pissed off about these school administrations that, like, if some girl wants to wear a prom dress that's made out of dashiki material, and it's a cool prom dress, and when they're like, oh, that's not appropriate, and then there's some other person, a guy who wants to wear a kilt with a tuxedo top to prom, and they're like, no, we don't want a guy in skirt coming to prom, or a female wanting to wear a tuxedo to prom. I mean, for crying out loud, it's prom. Life's too short. Enjoy, let them dance. God, enjoy your expression, enjoy the freedom, enjoy your life. Let us enjoy if you can let these girls come in there with the cutouts and they're looking like they're on Dancing with the Stars as prom dresses. What's a woman wearing a tuxedo gonna hurt, or a guy in a Scottish kilt if he wants to wear it, or go in drag, or vice versa, I just can't with that garbage. So that's something I'm very passionate about, is whatever your freedom, whatever you're feeling in your taste, is being able to be able to express that. So, and that's what I like about fandom. That's what I like about, like, a lot of the sci-fi cons. I just recently saw something where, with cosplay, and there was people who are being more gender free in terms of cosplay. So you might have girls that might be dressing up like Doctor Who, or you might have guys that are dressing up like Snow White, or whatever, that kind of thing. I think it's just like, it takes all kinds to make a world, and the freedom and the creativity that go along with that's the key, and that's a wonderful thing, because there are a lot of people who are jealous, who are going to hate on that, but, those are people who aren't seeing things through a very creative eye in their own life, and they're being judgmental in their own life, and usually there's a skeleton in their closet that they're not willing to really cope with, and if one thing we've seen with every person who ends up being critical of that, there's some sort of dark scandal where they were doing something and they were hiding something, and they weren't being true about themselves either. So I just want to put that out there. So I really like what strides that say people like Ellen are doing, or that there's more variety and there's being more acceptance. But then with for every step of acceptance, then there's always got to be that person that says this girl can't show her arms in this prom dress, and I'm like, really, arms? But it's just crazy. So let's see. Oh, she's still sleeping. uh, so another thing that I've been noticing is more celebrities are starting to speak out about the truth behind their image, and speaking out about strict diets that they've been put on, and speaking out about how certain types of behaviors that went on behind the scenes. And it's kind of interesting because my husband, being an actor, he'll be like, well, if you're with professionals, they're not going to do that. I'm like, how professional does somebody have to be to not to do something? I said there were things going on when they made everything from the indie Hardy movies in the 30s to even movies made a year ago. There was drama around those movies and stuff, and so, and then people are now starting to speak out, and I think they kind of wait till after a certain point, and I think now women are even talking about things like, well, how is it when a man says this on set, and I can, and he got paid more than me, and then if I said it, then this, and it turns out that they got paid much less, and then there's certain men that are now coming out saying, okay, I won't do this movie unless you pay her as much as me. And so there's now starting to be a little bit more openness about what's really going on. I spent a lot of years watching E2 Hollywood Story and Behind the Music on VH1, and I live for all that because I've always been about what goes on behind the scenes. Now, I have known of people who were like, I don't want to know that everybody in the Brady Bunch were that the mom was actually dating the son, and the dad was gay, and this was this, and this, and this. I love to watch the Brady Bunch, and I love just how everything's perfect, and I don't want to know, I don't want to have the image shattered. And that's fine, but as it turns out, those kind of people are always caught up in creating, always wanting to show a perfect image in their own life. And whereas I've always been somehow my eye has always caught what was going on. I would always be able to sniff out and sense either whatever, like the skeleton in the closet, and I would always be able to feel it. And even if I couldn't put my finger on it, or even if I tried to say, oh, no, it's really not like that, and even in some of my own judgments in the past, sooner or later those things would come out, and I'd be like, I should have caught that red flag. I should have caught that red flag in the beginning, or I should have caught that red flag 5 years ago, or I should have caught this thing. But the amazing thing is I very often can see it. So I've always been attracted to finding out what really goes on behind the scenes, because so now when I see things like there's that show called Unreal. If you haven't seen it, you should binge watch up the first season. They're now in the second season, and it's all based on a woman who has worked behind the scenes of the Bachelorette series. Now I don't know what parts of it are based on fiction, or actually exaggerated for a fictional story, or what parts are totally true, what really does happen behind the scenes, or things that she actually had to do behind the scenes of the Bachelor series, Bachelorette, even things like taking away people's medication if they're bipolar. so that if they're the crazy one, they'll start really going crazy. And so then when people will, that means they know that, oh wow, people were tweeting about how crazy so and so was. Oh, we want that person to be on the next. You get that person back in the next season and have them even act crazier, or getting people drunk when they have alcohol issues, and all kinds of stuff. So we don't know if some of that stuff that's amplified, or even isolating people who had issues with isolation, and then so then when they're back, or lying to them saying, oh, that this contestant said this and this, so that way they might be fighting on screen because they heard two different sets of lies from either side, from the producers, just to make them fight. So it's hard to say. It's a tough call of what's been real and what really happens, and what's been amplified just to make the storyline of the Unreal show. But it does make you think, and especially because right now The Bachelorette is on, and then let's say the same night The Bachelorette is on, then Unreal is on Lifetime. And because Unreal is on Lifetime, so you see something played out on The Bachelorette, then you watch it on Unreal, and you see, what's really going on behind the scenes to make what's happening happen. But anyway, it's still very interesting, and that's something that I wanted to make a note of. So, what else is there? Is there anything else that I wanted to cover? Because about the Unreal, yeah. Well, I think that's pretty much it. So. Just like I always say, if you like what I have to say, hit the thumbs up button on YouTube. Please, if you like my stuff, please hit subscribe. Please share. Now, it's right, I wanted to just go over makeup wise. I just decided to do a whole lot in terms of the smoky eye today, and lipstick wise, I am wearing. And I know, because I know people, I'm going to hear about it because I did something lighter. I did the smoky eye with a very light lip. I am wearing and I talked about it last week because I put it on top of a darker pink, but this time I'm just wearing it by itself. And it is the Wet n Wild 901B. Here it is. There you go. And then I put the e.l.f. matte lip color and it's called, what else is it? Nearly Nude on top. Actually, let's see that. It's kind of a pale pink nude on top, and then I added a little bit of, this is one of my favorite lip glosses. This is from Victoria's Secret, and I love their lip glosses. And this is the Indulgence that I have put on before in other videos, and actually it's kind of like a pearlescent, but it's mainly just for gloss. So anyway, I wanted to just do more talking this time, and I'm interested to see, they're going to bring back the Real Housewives of Potomac. They're going to bring, and I'll be interested to see who stays and who goes. I'm pretty sure Giselle is going to be back, because from things that she's been tweeting, and there's I'm interested to see who's going to stay with Potomac, not Potomac, with Beverly Hills. They just wrapped up Dallas, and they had a reunion show. I'm not really sure how I feel about Dallas. If I even want Dallas to come back, I'm just kind of, it's just a strange. It was a strange. I don't know if it was the best fit for me. It seemed like such immaturity versus, and then some growth versus such anger and such craziness and intensity, and none of it. It wasn't enough glamour for me, or enough fun, or enough enough things to keep me interested. I just don't know. I think they'd really have to add some different people in there, and for me to just stay with it. And then the same thing with they brought back OC, but I was surprised that they brought Megan back because she was somebody who I thought was very bland, and so I just don't know. I'm sort of like feeling out OC, what's gonna happen there. I really am not really sure about. Always fun to see Heather, and always fun to see. But I'm sort of like I'm on the fence if I'm gonna be as regular with OC as I was in other seasons. So anyway, that's a little bit of the Housewives report from someone who's currently. But as I always say, I'm more of a housewife now than I've ever been. I'm home more now than I've ever been. I cook more now than I've ever cooked, and I clean more now than I've ever cleaned. And but at the same time, I'm more devoted, and I'm more interested in focusing on things, on my interests too, in a way that I wasn't before. So in that regard, I still feel like I'm my usual. I never gave up my all my interests in my career and my focus. So it's always good to have that, so you don't feel like you lose yourself. I've been trying to get together with certain friends, and one thing is that they have a hard time in making certain drawing the line of saying when does this stop, and when do I even give myself an hour and a half to go to an exercise class or meet a friend for lunch or something. And then there are times where I get busy, or there are times where, so sometimes it's very hard to prioritize, or I make plans and then I feel bad because something comes up, and then they, cancel, and it's very hard. And I just wish time is so valuable. So anyway, try to just use your time wisely, and make the connections with the people who are of value, and try to keep the communication open with so that you kind of can learn from your mistakes. And I wish I had handled some things better in the past, and not had as much drama. So then people were like, "Well, how is it that you can watch all these housewives shows and all this?" I said, pretty much every storyline of. I said, imagine every storyline of every housewives show I've lived through. I've lived through it. I've been through it all, whether on one hand or the other, and so. And sometimes looking back, I'm like, I can't believe that was my life, and sometimes it still is, but it is. So anyway, so I hope you have a great weekend, and so it's now officially summer, at least where I'm on the East Coast. I know those of you south of the equator, it's now winter, but try and have a good weekend, and we'll see you next week. So take care. Bye. Thanks.